The Boston Celtics, they didn't quite, they didn't die quietly, did they? A clean death would have been easier. A clean death would have given us anger, jokes, someplace to point. And this wasn't that. Boston made TD Garden believe. For a few minutes in the fourth quarter there, every Celtics basket sounded like the roof was coming off. The building wasn't just loud, it was trying to help. It was trying to drag the season back onto the table and force air into the lungs. Then, Philadelphia took the sound right out of the room. Final score 76ers 109, Celtics 100. And tonight we examine the death of the Boston Celtics. Cause of death acute respiratory failure caused by an obstructed offensive airway, complicated by Jason Tatum's absence, untreated 3-1 lead poisoning, and a failed fourth quarter resuscitation. The first symptom was the Tatum-shaped wound. It's not an excuse, it's anatomy. Tatum didn't automatically kill Boston by being unavailable, but it changed the body. He's not just a scorer, he's the organizing principle. He's the player on the floor who gives everybody else a cleaner job. Jaylen Brown can attack, Derek White can stabilize, Peyton Pritchard can set a room on fire. And Boston still has talent, pride, and enough shot making to make Game 7 dangerous. But Game 7's a hard time to invent a new way to live. Without Tatum, every role got heavier. Brown had to be the center of gravity all of a sudden. White had to create more than connect, and Pritchard had to be more than just a spark. The offense had to find a new shape, while Philadelphia is already trying to close the wound. That's hard enough in January. In Game 7, it's surgery without anesthesia. The second symptom was shallow breathing. When Boston's jumpers fell, the Celtics looked alive. When the shots stopped falling, the spacing stayed, but the pressure disappeared. That's not just cold shooting, that's oxygen loss. A healthy offense breathes through multiple pathways. It gets into the paint. It bends the defense. It forces rotations, creates one advantage, then another. Too often, Boston only had one airway left, shot making. That can keep a team conscious, and it can even create a run, but it's not stable circulation. Not in Game 7, and not against a team that's already survived a burial attempt. This is where Tatum's absence figured big again, not because nobody else can play, because without him, Boston lost the first breath of the possession. And when that first breath isn't there, everything else starts gasping. The symptom 3 was 3-1 lead poisoning. Boston had this series, and not theoretically. Actually, a 3-1 lead isn't a suggestion. It's a command. It says the other team has to be perfect. You only have to be right once. Philadelphia was on the edge. The Celtics had 3 chances to end this before Game 7 ever existed, but Boston never buried it. Once Game 5 gets away, Game 6 becomes a warning. Once Game 6 gets away, Game 7 is now a deposition. Every empty possession asks the same question. Why is this still happening? That's the toxin. And at this point, Philadelphia wasn't the only opponent. The Celtics are playing the scoreboard, the injury report, and the memory of every chance they just wasted. By the end, the 76ers didn't look like a team trying to survive. They looked like a team that knew Boston had already failed to kill them. Then came the fourth quarter, and the game stopped being too clean. TD Garden went nuclear. Every Boston basket down the stretch sounded massive, not normal playoff noise, home crowd noise. This was belief loud, resurrection loud, an arena watching the body twitch and deciding it could scream the Celtics back to life. There was a flagrant review sequence involving Embiid. No ejection. A technical got folded into the same storm. The whistles became part of the bloodstream. The crowd boiled. Boston charged. Philadelphia wasn't just protecting the lead anymore. They were protecting their season from the Celtics, from the building, the noise, and from the possibility this is about to become one of those Boston stories that everybody has to hear from every Celtics fan forever. For a while, it felt possible. That's what made this death sharper. The Celtics didn't flatline. Pride showed up. Muscle memory showed up. The crowd showed up. Shot making showed up just long enough to make Philadelphia feel the door moving, but a surge isn't circulation. A run can jolt the body. Circulation keeps it alive After the shock wears off, circulation gets the clean possession when the arena's already emptied its lungs. Circulation prevents the comeback from becoming just another dramatic paragraph in a losing obituary. Boston had the shock and Philadelphia had the circulation. And that's the difference between pulse and survival. Time of death came when the Sixers took the sound out of the room. With the game still close enough for Boston to believe, Philadelphia steadied itself. No spiral, no full collapse, no gift-wrapped resurrection. The Sixers answered long enough and defended long enough and executed long enough to turn TD Garden from explosive to deflated. And that was the final image. A building that had spent the fourth quarter screaming its life back into a team suddenly emptied out. Not because the fans didn't care. They probably cared too much. They'd already seen the body move. They'd heard the monitor beep. They'd started to believe the patient might sit up. Then Philadelphia pulled away. Official ruling: the Boston Celtics died of acute respiratory failure after failed fourth quarter resuscitation. Contributing conditions: Tatum's absence, a scrambled offensive airway, jump shot dependency, 3-1 lead poisoning, and delayed closure of a series that should have been buried earlier. This wasn't a fraudulent team, and they weren't heartless. This was a wounded contender with enough muscle to scare Philadelphia, but not enough oxygen to complete the resurrection. Almost alive is still dead. The eulogy has to cover more than just tonight. Boston's season wasn't built to end here. This was supposed to be another deep spring, another run with expectation attached. One more year where the Celtics weren't asking to be taken seriously because the standard's already been set, and that's what makes this burial heavier. This wasn't an overachiever running out of fuel. This was Boston history. Pressure, standards, a roster still dangerous enough to make Game 7 unstable without its best player. Brown and White fought, Pritchard, the crowd, the building, everybody fought. But the series had already given too much oxygen. Philadelphia was down 3-1 and got back up. Boston had chances to end it and didn't. By the time TD Garden finally went quiet, the truth was sitting right there in the final score. Sixers 109, Celtics 100. The Celtics didn't go peacefully, and that's why this hurts. The season's over. The body's been examined. The cause is on the chart. Boston's dead. We'll see you next year. Thanks for watching.